Hello, and thank you so much for coming to today's video. I really appreciate you being here. First and foremost, I want to apologize for not having a video last week or having a video my life has been very interesting recently as of late, which sucks because I'm about to get married. My wedding's literally next month, and like all of this stuff is happening to me. I fell in February. I fell and I lifted the tendon from the bone in my hip. So I have been on essentially bed rest. And then on top of having that injury, on the day that I was supposed to film last week, the only day that I can film, the only day that I have time to film, I got food poisoning and threw up 7 times so severely that I pulled a muscle in my neck, and now my neck is super stiff. So if I seem super stiff in this video, I apologize. It has been a whirlwind of a time, but I am here with you today to give you a video and a PDF. If you all know, I have a loot letter. My loot letter is a Substack, which is a place where I give you something for you to put in that 3 terabyte hard drive of TTRPG stuff that you may or may not ever use, but you have it just in case. Yes, I have something for you today for the loot letter. So I'm going to be entirely honest, this was not the original intended loot letter. The original intended loot letter was a one-shot, but then I got injured, and whenever you're on bed rest, you think, oh, I'll be able to write a lot more, but actually you just go insane. You just, as an extrovert who needs to go outside, you lose your ever-loving mind. So it is something a little bit different, and it's something that is entirely selfish because I made it for my own game. It is a way to put Tiamat in a not Dragonlance, not Forgotten Realms game. That is what I have made for you today. Hear me out. Okay, so Tiamat is probably the most quintessential badass woman that has ever existed in D&D culture, right? Like Tiamat, everybody knows who Tiamat is. Tiamat is so famous that Tiamat is also in Final Fantasy. They actually said that the Tiamat and Bahamut in Final Fantasy were derived directly from D&D. So they're so famous that they're in Final Fantasy. I have always wanted to run a Tiamat scenario, to put Tiamat in my game somehow, some way, somewhere, put a Tiamat in my game. However, that would require me putting Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance in my game, and nobody ever wants to play there. I ask people whenever we start up a game, do you want to play in Forgotten Realms or do you want to play in one of the pre-mades? And they're always like, nah, we'll do your homebrew world. So it's like, okay, how do I incorporate these really cool badass monsters that I've wanted to incorporate but are only in these certain places? Like Driz, for example. Driz is another person who I've always wanted to incorporate into my world, but I can't because the drow are very different in my world, and in order to understand the epicness that is Driz, you have to understand the craziness that is drow in Forgotten Realms. However, once upon a time, there was a little book. There was a little science fiction novel that was published that took people by storm. And by people by storm, I mean cultified them. It cultified them, and it became a whole ding-dong religion. Scientology, right? Well, what if in your world, my world, the world, whatever world, Margaret Weast actually exists, and she, tippity-tap, well, I guess not tippity-tap, wrote Dragonlance as a book in your world, okay? And so this book gets published, and it takes the world by storm, but then there's this select few people who are like, what if Tiamat was real? What if we were under Tiamat's reign? We would be saved from taxes if we were under Tiamat's reign. And then they start worshiping Tiamat through this book, just like Scientology did, right? So that's kind of the thought process, right? So if you put this cult in your world, and everything that I make is plug and play, if you put this plug and play cult into your world, eventually your players will be able to essentially fight Tiamat. Now, it's not actually Tiamat. It is a marionette of Tiamat. See, in my little mind, what happens is an artificer takes hold into this cult, or an artificer creates this cult, and then the artificer creates a construct, right, that is an effigy to Tiamat. But it doesn't just, they don't just like create a construct, right? They don't just create a statue. It's a full-blown construct. So it has movable wings. It has 5 different heads that move independently. It has teeth that are very, very sharp that can kill something. It has breath weapons, all 5 breath weapons, stuff like that. But it's a mechanical marionette of Tiamat. And the idea is that the people who are in the cult worship this Tiamat marionette, right? Like they actually like straight up worship this Tiamat. So eventually what ends up happening is your player characters get into this cult, which is maybe doing some nefarious stuff or whatever, or recruiting people or killing people or whatever you want. And whenever you get into this cult, you have to fight the marionette that is controlled by the main guy, who I named Jeb, but you can name him whatever you want. But it's a marionette being puppeted by a guy who is going after you. Now, it is a custom stat block. I did make a custom stat block for the marionette of Tiamat. However, I will say that this custom stat block is heavily dictated by the actual Tiamat stat block. There's a lot of stuff that was in the Tiamat stat block that I put into the actual stat block because it was just good. It was just really good. Tiamat stat block is actually amazing. If you've never taken a gander at a gargantuan CR30 monster before, I'd recommend Tiamat to be your first because it's a beautiful stat block. So about the stat block that I personally made, I didn't assume that you were going to be going after a cult of Tiamat at level like 20, because that's what gargantuan Tiamat stat block assumes, is that you're going to be level 20 whenever you're fighting her. I didn't assume that you were going to be level 20 and fighting a cult. I figured that's small fry stuff and you're doing big boy stuff whenever you're level 20. So for small fry Tiamat, I really downgraded her quite a bit, keeping the same mechanics and keeping the same feeling. I downgraded her quite a bit by like giving her less legendary actions, because I think she had 5, giving her less legendary actions, giving her less legendary resistances, although she still has it. You know, all of this kind of stuff, also making all the attacks a lot less damage. I tried to level this out for a level 10 party. That's what I tried to create this for, a level 10 party, because I figured level 10 is big enough to where you're dealing with an effigy of Tiamat, but not small enough to where like it's gonna kill. You know what I mean? I feel like level 10 is a really good point. Plus, this would be a really good side quest to do after a whole series of like a whole season. And then you get to level 10 and then you kill the big bad, and then you got to do something as a side quest to like get you to the next thing. And so the side quest you do is go after these Tiamat lovers. You know, I figured that would actually be a lot of fun. So I went with level 10, a level 10 party. So I went with stats and dice that suited a level 10 party. I have not tested it on my party yet because we haven't met for 4 weeks because I've been injured, so I don't know. However, I'm pretty sure that these are the levels. I've checked it against other things that are CR10 around level 10 parties, and this is essentially the same amount of damage that they're putting out and the same amount of like action economy that they have. So I'm pretty confident in my abilities with the Tiamat marionette. So that is going to be my loot letter of this week, mostly because I have just been unable to write. I am really hoping that in April I will be able to do this really cool one-shot that I have for you guys. It's actually a Trinkets to Side Quest. I know you guys love my Trinkets to Side Quest. Essentially what happened is I asked someone to suggest a trinket, somebody suggested a trinket, and then I came up with such a cool idea for the trinket that I was like, I need to write this out. Like, this needs to be written out. And I was like, let's write this out. And so my Trinkets to Side Quest got turned into a one-shot that I'm actually writing out because it was so cool. I'm really excited about that one. I'm still going to give you guys other Trinkets to Side Quests, don't worry. And if you have any wants or needs for trinkets to be turned into side quests, please put them in the doobly-doo down below. But I am super duper excited for that. I'm also excited for this TIAMAT. I think this TIAMAT is a lot of fun. I'm using it in my own personal game. So, you know, it is just a super amount of fun time. I think that is going to do it for me. If you would like to see my newsletter, the link is in the doobly-doo down below. By the way, if you have not subscribed to my channel, I would super appreciate it if you did subscribe. I am on the road to 1K, which would be really exciting. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, I would super duper appreciate that. I love you guys oh so much. You are always welcome at my table. And let me know if there are any other monsters that are Forgotten Realm exclusive that you would like to turn into your homebrew game, or how you would turn it into your homebrew game. Because this was my solution, was to make it a cult of a book based off of Scientology, but I would be very curious to hear what you have to say. Okay, goodbye!